Welcome to another video, family. Today I'm going to be talking about the American International Corporation, which was started in 1915, which was the model for the modern military-industrial complex. One of the reasons why the military-industrial complex had to be started was that starting in 1870, when the temporal power of the Pope or papacy in the Vatican in Rome was taken in the unification of Italy. The papacy, Vatican needed to find a way to regain the papacy's temporal power over the world. Okay, so they did that through the United States through the Federal Reserve, which we know was created by a Venetian agent. Okay, they created the Federal Reserve in 1913. In 1914, World War I started. 1915, the American International Corporation was started, which was the model for the modern military-industrial complex that would, in conjunction with the Federal Reserve, provide the unlimited funds for Congress to okay the building of the military-industrial complex to go all over around the world, invading countries to reestablish the temporal power of the Pope. That's one of the reasons. Okay. Another underlying reason was what the sister talked about in the A.I.C papers. Okay, about them knowing that they are genetically recessive, the fear of genetic annihilation. There was also a psychiatric or psychological reason for them building the military-industrial complex. Okay, and also they started the United Nations, which is their one world government under white supremacy that would dominate the 193 or 194 countries in the world that's under the United Nations, okay, under white supremacy. So I'm going to start now with just a brief history over the main bank that was behind the creation of A.I.C, or the American International Corporation, which was the National City Bank of New York. Today it's called Citibank. So a little history on the National City Bank of New York. Okay, its origins date back to 1812, when in 1811 the U.S. Congress refused to renew the charter of the first bank of the United States, the country's central bank, which had branches in cities such as New York. Okay, on June 16, 1812, some of the Federal Bank of New York shareholders and other investors secured state incorporation of the City Bank of New York, which was later established in the branch banking rooms of the old First Bank of the United States. The bank grew as New York City became the nation's commercial and financial capital, and in 1865 it was chartered under the National Bank Act and renamed National City Bank of New York. In 1897 it became the first large American bank to open a foreign department, and in 1915, that's the same year that it created the American International Corporation, it became America's leading international bank upon the purchase of IBC in 1902. IBC was created in 1902. And this IBC had 21 overseas offices in 13 countries and territories. Okay, so that's a little history of the National City Bank of New York. Now let's go into what the A.I.C actually was. Okay, it was an American foreign investment trust founded by Vanderlip in 1915, November, with the initial capital of $50 million, and it was located at 120 Broadway in Manhattan. Okay. So, some more information. Okay, as I said before, Frank A. Vanderlip Sr., he was the agent or front guy for the A.I.C. that was created in 1915. And he was put on really because he was an unknown. He was really brought into the National City Bank by James J. Stillman, who was the president of National City Bank of New York. And at that time, it was the country's largest bank. Vanderlip became VP, vice president in 1902, and president from 1909 to 1919. Okay. When the stock market and the financial system collapsed in the panic of 1907, Vanderlip worked with other stable bankers led by J.P. Morgan. Okay, Vanderlip allied with top Japanese business leaders to establish U.S. Economy, to stabilize the U.S. economy. In 1908, Vanderlip led a U.S. business delegation to Japan, and it was the first official modern U.S. business delegation to visit Japan. And he met with the Mitsui conglomerate there, which is a Zaibatsu. Okay, on November 1910, at the invitation of Senator Nelson Aldrich, Vanderlip, now the president of National City Bank of New York, joined a small group of leading bankers on a train to Jekyll Island, Georgia. There was also included in this group Paul Warburg, who I talked about earlier, who was the family were Venetian Jews. Okay, and he was the architect of the Federal Reserve Act, and this is how the Venetian bloodlines was able to come into the United States and take over its central banking system. Okay. Now, Vanderlip accepted a chairmanship to the War Savings Committee in Washington, D.C. in 1916. Okay. And let's see. So they were working with the Japanese because the United States was taking advantage of France and the UK during World War I because they were having financial difficulties, and these top bankers were jockeying for position because they wanted to go into China and Russia and open up those huge markets for the corporations that they were starting, that were being funded through National City Bank and the Federal Reserve. Okay, the problem was these areas were traditionally being held by the British and the French, because they were handling a lot of the infrastructure projects and things of that nature in these countries. And now these so-called American bankers and financiers were calling themselves knocking the British and the French out of these areas, so-called the Pax Americana. I don't believe it was really a Pax Americana, though, because the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers were involved in these ventures. And so how can you call that a Pax Americana? Okay. So basically the USA became an extension of European banking interests and a secure ally of Britain via these two vehicles of the National City Bank of New York, which is the A.I.C. in 1915, and of course the Federal Reserve System that was created in 1913. Okay. So the A.I.C. controlled many different companies. I'm not going to really go into the list right here because the list is very long, but if you do some research, you'll be able to see all of the companies that A.I.C. controlled and how they were able to go all over the world Mainly the biggest markets was China and Russia. Okay, and there's some good books out there on the topic, such as Anthony Sutton, where he said that the A.I.C was significantly involved in the Bolshevik revolutions of 1917. Also, through the United Fruit Company, they influenced the South American revolutions and things of that nature. Okay, all in all, at the end, A.I.C controlled 177 companies, okay, worldwide, and they made enormous profits for its original investors, okay, and some of the biggest financial investors in America and abroad were also a part of the A.I.C, okay. So with that, I'm going to say I'm going to end it right there. Another good book, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler by Anthony Sutton, is also another good book where they talk about Wall Street's role in the rise of Hitler, okay, and for the Second World War. So, you know, a lot of these reasons of why these things are built up, as I said before, psychologically with them knowing that they're genetically recessive, okay, and also knowing that they wanted to maintain the status quo, which is white supremacy. They had to set up the Federal Reserve, the United Nations, and all of these other institutions that they have today. So with that, I'm going to say good night. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, leave your comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Thank you.